Okay, cool. So you're going to be building multiple forms that use controls, and we'll talk about what those are. Your labels need to be associated with form controls. You're going to use relevant attributes and hopefully use a method and action attribute on the form tag. And we'll go over what all of this means because objectives like this with the vocab that you haven't learned are kind of confusing, but we'll go over them. So basically, what is a web form? A web form is a way to get info from the user into your app. So for example, when you open Google, there's a form right there. What do you want to search? You type what you're searching, you hit search, it takes that information from you and searches the web, right? When you log into something, you're giving your email address or your username and then your password. Those are forms, and you're giving it to, the app is taking that information to use it in order to do something. So structural tags, that was one of our objectives, is using structural tags. Form, field set, and label are the main ones that come to mind for me. Form, I don't think is technically required anymore, but use it because I think it's more semantic. It also lets you easily find where your form is. Everything that you want in your form needs to be in between a opening and closing form tag. Field set is like a collection of inputs or a collection of controls, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then labels are exactly what they sound like, a label for your input or a label for your text area, things like that. So let's see those kind of in action. We'll start up at our form. So we need, we'll go just from this one. Yeah, we'll just clear out all of it. So I'm just gonna uncomment this stuff. I start with a form and I'm putting a bunch of stuff in between my opening and closing forms. This is telling me that my form is right here. Sorry, just comment those out. And in here, I am using a label, which we talked about. And so when I show you this, you should see the word email on our screen. And none of my stuff is styled, it's just basic so that you can see what it looks like. And then I also have a field set, which is a collection of our controls. And so I've got a bunch of different things inside that collection, and you'll see how that field set separates it from the rest of the page. So let's do this. Cool. So back over here, up top, I've got an input type email. It doesn't have a label, so it doesn't say anything on it. That's this right here. Let me zoom in. That's probably really hard to see. Is that better? Cool. I've got a radio button. It kind of has a label, but it's not like a semantic label. Just says Rick Sanchez. You can select it. It actually think it's already checked. We'll talk about that in a second. Down here is where we actually have our label. And check it out. It says email right before our thing, which is pretty cool. Also notice that it was prepared to autofill because of email, which is cool. All right. So those are kind of our structural tags. Everything else is going to be inside those. So our form controls are like special elements within a form. So you can have an input, for example, like email or username. You can have a select, which is like a drop-down menu or a menu. You can have a text area if you need to put a ton of characters into a text box. Like if someone is submitting a post, like to a blog, you would need more than just one line, right? And then buttons. You can have radio buttons, which are like those selectable little circles. You can have check boxes. You can have, I guess those are more like input areas, but you can also have regular old buttons for like submitting or searching, and you can change what they do using other attributes. So our actual form controls, we've got input email, which, oops, hello. We've got input email, which we saw over here. It does not have a label, so that's kind of lame. But then we have an input with a label right here, which looks great and clean right here. We've got an input that's a radio, which is right here. Our select looks like this. So the full section, and I have all these ugly breaks in here just so a quick way for you to see them all separated and not stacked next to each other. Please don't use those in real life. The select is a menu, and it's got options inside of it. So I need to have at least one option inside of my opening and close select. The select is this guy right here. And you can select whatever character you want. Yay! The reason why it starts on Morty is because I have this fancy attribute that I'll talk about in a second. But that's our select. All of these are our options. Option, value summer is summer. Okay? We also have a text area down here in our field set. So it says write something here. It has 10 rows, and I specify that, and 50 columns. Columns, I think. That one is right here. It's huge compared to our input area, right? Absolutely huge. Then we also have, let's see. Yes, Sean.
On that section, it says rows 10, so I'm assuming that means how far down it can go, and then the columns. Does that mean that it can only go like 50 characters to the right?
Looks
so
like.
It doesn't like keep on spelling over and over and over?
Let's see. Yep.
Okay.
And let's,
columns or characters?
yeah,
Basically,
I'm not sure. It might be interchangeable. We can Google it. Yeah. And then we've got a button. It's just a button tag. You can put your what you want, like the label of the button to be, although it's not like a semantic label tag, inside of the opening and close buttons. And ta-da, you have a button. I'll talk about why it's doing that in just a second. All right. Okay, one more vocab word. Attributes. So these are extra values that configure the elements or adjust their behavior. So up here I have the word selected in this middle option. So that means when this page first opens, it is automatically going to be selected on Morty because it's selected right here. If I take that off and go back and refresh, it's going to just go automatically to the top, the first one in our options, which is summer.
For example,
Go for it.
you're starting off with like, in this case, a select thing, and then you have one of your options is like select one, and then you have like the attribute is selected under that one. That's your default, so that one shows that.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Another one is this checked box on our radio input. So if we go back over here, it's automatically checked on Rick Sanchez. Let's uncheck it. Oh, not clicking, I don't think. But we can do it from here, which is nice. I think that there is an attribute that you can put that makes it unclickable, or with radio buttons, it might be that if you have multiple ones, you select another one and it automatically unselects the other one. We'd have to test it out. But yeah, so that is nice. If you want to pre-select something for someone, you can do that with check boxes too, which is awesome. Let's see what else. This one is a huge one, and you're going to be using it all of the time. Input type text is username, and I put required. So basically this is saying you can't submit the form unless this is filled out, which is why when I click this button, it's like yelling at me over here. Hey, please fill out this form field. It would be better if we had a label on this. We could actually see what it was. But let's just do that real quick. Cool. Cool. So we need that username to be like filled out before you can click submit, which is pretty cool. The other stuff that you might be seeing on here are things like type. If I don't have type on here, it's just a regular input, I'm assuming. So that one is our Rick Sanchez radio button, but I took off the radio part, and now it's just a text field. We also have value. This is for if you want to easily get like data from like what they click. You put the value in there so that when you select it, it has the value of Rick in like your jQuery. Type. Text, you can specify other things like email or our radio button. Right? Let's see what else we've got hidden on here. We talked about rows and columns or characters, depending on what it actually is defined as. Cool. If you want to check out all of the attributes, because there are a ton, this link right here will be super useful to you. You can also just Google them. There's a huge list, and you can see what all of them do, which is cool. Okay, so before we dig into that, I want to talk about actions and methods. So earlier, just now, we talked about method. Can somebody give me an example of a method with a hand raise? Yeah, a get method. And you kind of can see it right here. What's another one? Matt. Delete, yes. Go ahead. Post. We'll start with those ones. There are more. So I will uncomment. Oh gosh, that was a bad idea. We'll uncomment all of this. Oh, I did this wrong. Okay, we'll just delete these comments. Then we can use it. So this one is, ooh, we don't want all of that though. Moment, please. Cool. So this one, we've got another little form, and it has the method of get on it. So what that means is when I hit the submit button, it is going to trigger, I guess is the right word, a get request. I don't have the code written to make a get request right now because I'm only doing the form, but in real life, you would have that code written and it would be connected up, ready to go. My action right now is empty, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's check out what this one looks like. So it just is a name, and this save button is my actual submit button, and that's what would trigger the get request. Because of like the way it works, it's going to at least like try to do something. And if you'll note up here, my name is equal to that right up here, what I just typed, which is pretty cool. Like it's just an automatic thing. Bing. Chase.
So essentially, like a good example of this is people just get requests, like searching in databases.
You'd have to look at the page to see the type of request.
But like in practice,
Conceptually, that's literally what's happening. If you type something in, it's probably a post because you're sending the data of what you typed in. So it's like post request with the data. The response is the search results.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I love thinking about that. It's kind of crazy. Cool. And then I have another form down here, and I wanted to talk about the action. Basically, my understanding is that this is where it's going to be sending you to, or like the page that would be receiving your information, I guess. But you could also have it be going to your database, right? So let's check out what this one looks like. It's just an empty thing because I do not have a label. So this one will work on enter since I don't have a button. Things go here, enter. Why did it say hey? If you'll look up here, I've got a different HTML than what I was working on. So we can go back and see this one's fake HTML. It's like where I type all my random practice stuff. And then when I hit enter, which is submitting, it is going to thing.html. Back here, if you look at the code, it says action thing.html. So it's sending me to this page when I submit the form. Does that kind of make sense? If I were to put, I don't know, we could put any other page that I had. It would go there, right? Yes?
So like confirmation page.
That would be a perfect example. Confirmation page, yes. Like
Or
yours,
say
sweet.
if somebody typed in this one there you suck, you could have it go to a website that gives them a virus.
Sure. Good thinking.
You see those ads like win a free iPad. The action is a malicious website.
Yay!
I remember an email that my dad got in the 90s, and it didn't send him to like a malicious website or give him a virus or anything. It was just some joke that somebody threw together. And it's like, Anheuser-Busch toured their brewery in St. Louis, and my dad clicked on it, and it pops up with this flashing smiley face and starts singing, "You are an idiot."
Well, yeah, you could do that too. Okay, so real quick, I went through all of that stuff in succession, so I want to do a review real quick before I show you what you can work on to actually get this stuff in practice. So structural tags, please think about, I talked about 3, think about them. I'm going to call on somebody to give me one in just a second. I talked about 3 structural tags. If you have to Google it, you can. Okay, Michael, do you have one?
Form.
Yes, form, our main structure. We put all of our form stuff inside Stratum.
Field set?
Field set, awesome. And then there's one more that I talked about. Label, yeah, so that you know what the heck is going on and they're not just a bunch of empty boxes all around. Cool. So Form controls. These are the special elements that we have inside of our form. Could someone give me an example of one? Let's give you like 15 seconds to think about them. Ross, do you have one?
Form? I'm sorry.
The special controls that go inside of like a form tag.
Oh, like input text?
Yes, exactly. Rob, do you have one? Select, nice. John?
Text area.
Text area, right. And then we can also put attributes on those. So take a minute, Google, if you've got your computer, some attributes, and I want you to come up with a really cool one that you didn't know existed, or one that does something interesting to you. And then I'm going to take a couple of volunteers to share them with us. The ones we covered were things like required, which is really important, and selected for a radio button, or checked for a radio button, I mean, and then selected for a select menu with options in there. So you can type in attributes HTML5 to find some. You might already know some that you want to share. Let's take a couple more seconds. All right, anybody got a cool one or a super useful one or an interesting one that they found? Sean?
Autocomplete.
Autocomplete, yeah, that's cool. Well?
Target blank with an page.
Yeah, awesome. Nice. Chase?
No validate, which looks like it was implemented in HTML5. So that it specifies that the form should not be validated. Why would you ever want that though?
I'm not sure. Why would you use that instead of just leaving it blank?
So if you leave it blank, the browser will automatically validate it. So if you have like type equals email, the browser has built-in validations for it. A lot of times we use our own custom JavaScript to validate it. So that way you disable browser validation, and then we have JavaScript that will like turn in box red and stuff like that based on our own validations.
Marlena?
Pattern.
Tell us about it.
So basically you can tell it like it needs to be like capital A through Z, lowercase a through Z, and so many letters, and it'll check like passwords and emails and stuff.
Cool. That sounds super useful. Let's take one more. Sure, Matt.
Form in Z type.
Ooh, tell us about it.
It specifies how the entered data should be encoded when submitted.
Fancy.
Security, or is that just for the server parsing it?
I'm not sure. I've never used it. We'd have to try it out. That would be cool. Okay, and then I briefly talked about method and action. We already reviewed method. This is our get, post, delete, update, any of that business. For our forms, we have to specify like that for our form. And then action is like going to direct us to a new page, similar to how we just did with the fake HTML going to the thing HTML when I typed in a name. So here's the deal. On the daily plan, I don't have it up right now, is an HTML forms exercise. It walks through like, I think 4 big examples of forms, and it uses all sorts of different things so that you can get practice. This is a good thing to do because it will keep you from having to reference things constantly. You'll just like have it memorized, be able to build a form by yourself without referencing anything super fast. So I encourage you to do that one. Do we have any questions before I scurry off? No? Okay. Yay, thank you.